Saat ini, Anda sedang mendengarkan Radio Era Baru, Green Radio Line, Beyond the Limit.
Hi, now you're listening Green Radio Line with me, Livia Collins, in the program Bumi Kita program. Now we have an exclusive interview with Farwiza Farhan with the topic Forest and also Mankind. And now she's speaking as a forest conservationist. But first, I want to tell that she is continuing her study right now in PhD Radboud University of Nijmegen, Netherlands, and also she had won the Whitney Awards in 2016, Future for Nature's Award in 2017, and yeah, she's also focused on conserving and protections, restorations in the Lausers ecosystem in Aceh. I would like to say thank you for the time. It's such a honor that I could talk to the persons who as big as you are, and I already watched your TED Talks and also the Before the Flood documentary film that you are made with the Leonardo DiCaprio, and it was amazing. I was amazed by what you are working with and also your aspirations about the Indonesian forest.
Thank you for this opportunity, Livia. It's an honor and a pleasure for me to be here.
Okay, thank you so much. And I would like to ask, how are you there right now?
I'm actually doing really well. It's been a long week, but it has been a good Friday.
Okay, amazing. In our interview today, will be aired in Bumi Kita program or our program that throughout our website in www.greenradioline.id and also our YouTube channel in Green Radio Line in this Saturday. So maybe for the first time, you can introduce yourself to our listeners today.
Okay, fine. Hi everyone. My name is Farwiza Farhan. I usually go by Wiza. I currently live in Banda Aceh and the northern tip of Sumatra. I work at the moment. I run this organization called Forest, Nature, and Environment Aceh. The focus of our work is to protect, conserve, and restore the Loiser ecosystem in Sumatra, one of the most amazing landscapes in the world.
Yes, amazing. And I really, curious about your job and also your activity right now, like what you're doing in the middle of the pandemic right now.
Well, the work that I do at the beginning has a lot to do with campaigning. We push for better protection of the Loiser ecosystem, but at the same time, we seek to empower local community to have a voice in decision making, because often decision about the forest, decision about land are made in meeting rooms, are made behind locked doors, are made by people who don't live in the forest. So ideally, we want to create space for more people whose life is dependent on the forest to have a say in the decision, to have a seat at the table.
Yep, and the things that you are interested to working as a protect the forest, and I really curious, like what is the first thing that you that made you interested with this kind of field?
It comes out of love. You know, I first fall in love with the ocean. I went diving. And I really love being underwater, but that love for nature grew. I wanted to protect the ocean. I wanted to protect forests. I wanted to work the kind of work that would enable me to do more for the environment. And that's how it all started.
Okay, so it started with your interested to the oceans first, and then now you're working in a Loiser ecosystem in Aceh, right?
Yes.
Amazing.
That's correct.
And I'm really curious, like how long you have been working in this field exactly, like in the forest protections, and how long is that?
So if I answer that, would that reveal my age?
That's okay, by the way.
I'm just joking. I have been working on this sector for about a decade. So when I graduated from university about over a decade ago, I was looking for work in conservation sector, in NGOs, in things related to the environment. But it was really hard to find job. in conservation in environmental sector. I applied to many NGOs and got rejected straight away. Of course, I admit that my CV was not shiny. I don't have very good grades in the university either. I failed many classes. So I understand why people don't want to hire me.
Okay.
But because I was persistent, I was stubborn, I really just want to work in conservation sector. So I keep trying, and eventually I got invited to join the Loiser Ecosystem Management Authority. At that time, I don't know where the Loiser ecosystem is.
Okay.
I don't know why it's amazing. But I get to know the place, I get to know the people, I get to know the landscape, and I get to know the wildlife in the area over the years. And it has been one of the most amazing decades of my life.
And it started your organizations, like it is Haka organizations, and I'm really curious, like what Haka is working on the forest in the Loser.
What Haka is doing to protect forests in Loiser, first of all, we need to remember that the job to protect forests is the responsibility of all of us.
Yep, exactly.
The mandate to protect forests, a lot of it lies in the hands of the government because they are the ruler, they govern. What we do as NGO is to push and to advocate and to campaign to make the protection better. I come from a background of ecologist. Back then, I think if I have this belief that if we understand how ecosystem function, then we would want to protect it.
Yep.
What's wrong? What I learned is even if we understand how ecosystem function, there are other forces, there are other conflict of interest that make relevant stakeholders or those in power do not want to protect the forest. And this is why Haka as an NGO, we are advocating, we are pushing, we are campaigning for better protection of the forest. And that could happen through meeting rooms, through court, through discussion space, as well as the actual protection on the ground with the local community.
Yes, amazing. And like before we come to the topics, I really want to ask you how you define the forest itself. You already work in the forest like in decades, and I'm really curious how you define the forest itself.
This is a good one. Of course, in Indonesia, when I first learned about the term forest, forest area, and actual forest cover, it could be different things. It could be standing somewhere on a piece of land with lots and lots and lots of tall trees, very rich in wildlife, and then the government would say, "You're not standing in a forest. There's no forest here." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? Everything that I'm seeing is forest."
Yes.
So the way I define forest is more of the forest cover than the actual zonation of forest. So when we look at an area with a tree cover taller than 3 meters, with a diameter bigger than 30 centimeters, with tree diversity that is resemblance, it is not a monoculture, then it's forest.
Okay.
However, we also do find places like pine forest, where the tree diversity is a bit low, but it's still forest.
Okay. Amazing. And like related to the topics that we have today, the forest and also mankind, that do you think forest and also mankind are mutually dependent on each other's, and what is the reason that people think it's not and start to exploit the forest itself?
Here's the thing. Mankind dependent on healthy environment.
Yep.
Be it forest, savanna
Mm-hmm.
or other ecosystem or mountains, we as mankind
Mm-hmm.
need basic life support services. We need clean air. We need clean water. We need food. We need protection from disasters. We need roof over our heads. Even back before human built cities and civilizations, we live in cave because we need that protection that nature provides.
Yep.
So mankind depend on the forest, on their environment no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
The question then become, does the environment dependent on human? Human evolve a lot later
Yep.
than the earth. Even if we put the age of the earth and human existence within this earth within a 24 hours clock,
Mm-hmm.
we are pretty much that moment minutes before midnight. So our interaction with the planet has been very brief in the geological timescale,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, the destruction that we have created has been massive,
Yep.
has been unprecedented. At this point, protection of the forest do depends on human being.
Yeah.
And the reason is because we allow companies to come in and take everything. So it is the wisdom and the power of people living around the forest and within the forest to protect it. The wisdom of indigenous communities,
Mm-hmm.
the wisdom of farmers, the wisdom of people whose life closely interact with the forest.
Mm-hmm.
So to go back to your question, does forest and mankind equally interdependent on one another at this point in time? Yes,
Mm-hmm.
very much. And we must not forget that.
And yeah, the fact that many people are forget about those kind of things is, it's kind of sad. For if we are looking for what happened in our forest today.
Yeah, exactly that. Sometimes we are framed to think in a way that by keeping forests intact,
Mm-hmm.
we are stopping economic development.
Yeah.
In reality, what kind of economic development could we have if we don't have the ecosystem services
Mm-hmm.
that the forests are providing?
Yep.
If we are constantly inhaling toxic smoke, if we don't have clean water, even just these two basic things, it is really bad for our health. But
Yep.
we forget that.
Yep. And if we take a look back at the history of why forest and also the mankind become forest versus mankind, and we will find that the industrial revolution is one of the reasons that humans become powerful enough to even destroy the planet and also the forest. And how do you think about this fact itself?
This is interesting, yeah, because what we do throughout that industrial evolution and what we do throughout the whole civilization before then is we are harnessing the power of the sun.
Mm-hmm.
And back then, the power of the sun practically support our agriculture, and it support our food provision. And then the power of the sun come in another form, fossil fuel.
Yeah.
Fossil fuel our industrial revolution, and we as civilization change too fast for us to keep up with how the planet has evolved. We take all these resources for granted.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, we have a lot of children, but our life expectancy is short.
Yes.
And now as we become more advanced in our food and nutrition, in our medical advancement, we begin to live longer.
Mm-hmm.
We live longer with the same wasteful lifestyle as we have when we have short life.
Yeah.
And then the provision of products that we use to support our life have become so easy. But our economy is created in a way that it's linear. We extract resources from the earth and turn it into a product. We use the product and then we throw it away.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Okay.
And then we throw it away. And by throwing it away, we just changing something that was an indefinite resources inside the soil, inside this earth, to become a waste.
Yeah.
And that has been detrimental because the number have grown beyond what this earth could recover on its own. Earth has been amazing. Anything that we do to it so far, the earth could self-heal, essentially. It's like if we have wounds on our body, it heals by itself. Until we get a virus that's so strong that our immune system broke down. We have killed the immune system of the earth.
Yeah.
We have taken beyond the carrying capacity of the earth. And this is not only our interaction with the forest, but it is our interaction with the planet in general.
Yeah. Exactly. That's amazing, by the way. And you know, like the forest provides all living things that you already said previously, and we call as ecosystem services. That this is how important the forest and all, for the mankind itself. But most of the time, humans are forgetting that facts, and it was what we're talking previously. But what do you think that can make people a little bit realize, you know, like aware about we need to take care of the forest because it was where the livestock was, you know, like coming from, and also to fulfill our needs, and how to share this to the people to make them aware of this fact.
We don't protect something that we don't love.
Yeah.
And we don't love something that we don't know. So I would encourage people to get to know your local environment. And then to get to know your impact on that local environment and what you can do to make that impact positive. Everything that we do have an impact. Now it's our choice whether the impact would be negative or positive.
Yep.
I think a lot of us take for granted that when we visit nature, we just leave litter behind. We leave our plastic bags, we leave our bottled water, we leave our waste behind with the hope that it's someone else's responsibility, someone else will take care of it.
Yeah.
We all need to internalize the fact that we have to take care of our own shit.
Exactly.
We have to take better responsibility over what we do. And again, not only in forests, not only around forests, anywhere you go, you have to be aware that everything that you do have an impact, and that choice is yours. If you have children, wouldn't you want to protect your children and give the best is possible for them?
Yeah.
Would you not want to give them cleanest air and cleanest water?
Yes.
And it's as simple as that level of awareness. Human health and environmental health is so closely linked, is so closely interrelated. And simply by knowing what you do and how it impacts your own health, it hopefully could change the action that you take in the future.
Exactly. But you know, like when you're talking about you are take care of your ways. You know, this is also the problem for our cultures, like Indonesian culture, especially if we are talking about Indonesians. Like many of us, just like what you said, we think that there is others' responsibility for what we are doing, and just make a, and you know, like it's hard to tell people about, you know, you have to take care of this one. Meanwhile, they don't even care about that. And I think that's kind of challenges that I found. as I work in the Green Radio line and also shares some things about, living harmony with natures. And what do you think about this kind of things?
Um, when Indonesians go to Singapore, they don't litter everywhere. They don't leave their rubbish behind. They would actually pick up their own rubbish and put it in the rubbish bin. And you know why?
Yeah.
Of course, two things, yeah. First, it's very expensive to litter in Singapore. You're gonna have to pay a lot of fine if you get caught.
Yeah.
Second, it's socially unacceptable to leave litter all over the place in countries like Singapore. We need to make it socially unacceptable to be treating the environment so badly.
Yeah.
You see someone hitting a child on the street, would you stop them? Or is it culturally acceptable
No.
to see someone torturing someone else? Right?
Yeah.
Why is it culturally acceptable to be torturing the planet the way we do? Why do we feel bad to remind someone to pick up their trash?
Yeah.
I think more of us need to make it a common agreement that we need to own the responsibility. And when someone do not meet these social norms, they must be reminded.
Exactly.
Why do we punish thief so badly? Why do we punish copet so badly? We beat them up, but we don't punish those engaged in corruption so badly.
Yeah.
This kind of social norms needs to change. And you know where does change come from? From each and every one of us.
Exactly. Amazing. Okay. Next questions that what do you think about the mankind could contribute as a feedback that we could give to the forest, and also the commitment that we have to hold to take care of the forest itself?
I think the commitment that we need to take is the commitment we have with ourselves and with our society. I think if we want to give back to the environment, all we need to do is to take care of it, to allow it to recover. When we keep dumping waste to the ocean could not clean itself up enough. Recently, probably for those who watch lots of news, perhaps they have seen images of whales or turtles eating plastics and how, or birds, and how it damaged their digestion system. Recently, my brother-in-law sent us a video of goats that died because they eat face mask. That is littered all over the place. And this goat simply unable to defecate, so his digestion system is blocked and it died. And it's so painful, and it made me angry to see such images. It sort of show how little care we take about those living around us, and how little we give time and energy to own the responsibility of things that we do. So I think if there's one thing that we could do to give back to the forest, to the environment, to the sea, to the earth, is just be aware of the consequences of your action.
Exactly. Okay. Okay, we're going to the next questions. That if we are talking about the urban people, like the people that live in the big city like Jakarta, and also like a big city in Indonesia or in internationally, like they were not really related to the forest because they live so far from the forest. And what do you think, like the good options that we can approach the mainstream people in order to realize that how important the forest, what you can do to the forest, to protect the forest itself?
There is a number of good initiatives that some organization have started to provide more connectivity and relatability between forests and the urbanites. One of them, perhaps you have heard of this initiative called Hutan Itu Indonesia. And this is an amazing, a great initiative that bring the richness of the forest to the urban setting, as well as the connectivity of the urban youth to the beauty of the forest. So they do things like creating music inspired by the forest. They do things like a dinner spread through food that comes from the forest. They do trips so people get to visit the forest and experience how amazing it is to be in the forest. You know, my partner is from Jakarta.
Okay.
He's a city boy that never been to a forest before. For him, the idea of a holiday is going to another big city. So the first time I took him to the Loisar ecosystem, he looked into the river and he was like, is this a river or an aquarium? The water is so clear, it's impossible. What is the filtration system of this river? Because the only river that he knows is Ciliwung. And of course, it's very polluted.
Yeah.
So for him to have that first exposure of seeing clean water that flows from the forest, plant a seed to love this landscape, to love this ecosystem, of wanting to experience that over and over again. And I think all of us living in the urban area are welcome. We need to be more exposed to the forest setting. You need to see how amazing it is to interact with orangutan in the wild. How incredible it is to swim in a very clear river. How is it to eat fresh fish from the river?
Okay. Okay, great. Like if we take a look back from your point of view, and what is the things that the forest has to accept when we when the forest itself already give to the people? What should we like we give exactly to the forest itself?
Hello?
Yeah. Hello?
I think your voice disappeared. Can you still hear me? Okay.
Okay. I will continue. And like if we are talking about the mankind, and it will leads to the you already mentioned about the economic aspect that becomes the reason why a human exploit the forest, and how to make it balance from the economy and also the forest protections, because this is mostly become the problem that we face right now in this century.
First of all, I'm not saying that we should abolish cities and we should turn everything into forests. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is nature provide some of the best solution to many problems that humanity have created.
Yeah.
For example, one of the problems that we have heard quite a lot, and probably it's trying to deal for quite a while, is the issues of climate change. We have emitted so much emission beyond what the Earth could regulate in itself.
Yeah.
So now we are thinking about technology to tackle this problem. Each of these technology are so expensive. But if there is one solution that would be very cost efficient, it's a nature-based solution. something as simple as restoring some of the world degraded forests. If we think about what is it that the forests have to accept when they give everything to people, in reality, the interaction doesn't go that way. The interaction is essentially nature do not fight back in the meeting rooms. Nature do not fight back in court. Nature, quote unquote, fight back simply by stop functioning. And when nature stop functioning properly, we get things like COVID, we get things like Ebola, we get things like floods and landslides.
So the next questions that I have is that is this important for people to have awareness about the environmental issues and specifically for the forest itself, and how do you think about the people that who are aware but don't take willing to pay anything about the forest protections and also take actions about that? They just aware but they don't want to do something about that.
I would wonder why. If they know why it's important to protect forest and environment, I would want to understand why they don't want to take action. Is taking action in contrast with their economic interests? Is taking action might be putting them into conflict with their closest network of people? That would be my first questions. If you know, why is it that you don't show that you care?
Okay, and we already talking about the forest and mankind in the broader topic, in the international one and also national one. So we move to the national, dan alangkah baiknya nih kita berbicara juga dengan bahasa nasional kita, bahasa Indonesia. Dan ini Kak, kalau kita berbicara tentang isu dari kehutanan nasional yang kita miliki sekarang, terlebih nih dengan narasumber Kak Wiza ya, yang bekerja dan dengan penuh dedikasi di hutan Indonesia. Bagaimana kalau menurut Kakak sendiri kondisi hutan Indonesia saat ini nih?
Kalau menurutku kondisi hutan Indonesia itu bisa dilihat dari dua lensa. Lensa yang baik dan lensa yang buruk. Karena kenyataannya Indonesia itu adalah salah satu negara tropis yang dikaruniai kekayaan alam yang luar biasa. Hutan yang luas dan keanekaragaman hayati yang tinggi. Kita memiliki begitu banyak potensi ekonomi, pembangunan ekonomi dari pemanfaatan secara lestari hutan kita. Tapi seringkali pemanfaatan yang kita pahami seringkali berbentuk eksploitasi, sehingga tendensi kita itu lebih banyak untuk menebang hutan, mengambil kayunya, lalu lahannya ditanami komoditas-komoditas single crop gitu, cash crop, single crop, yang harapannya komoditas ini memberikan kita penghasilan dalam waktu yang singkat. Tetapi di saat yang bersamaan, Indonesia itu juga salah satu negara dengan tingkat deforestasi tertinggi di dunia dalam beberapa tahun terakhir, bahkan dalam mungkin 2 atau 3 dekade terakhir, tingkat deforestasi di Indonesia itu begitu tinggi sampai banyak expert yang mengatakan bahwa emisi Indonesia itu datangnya dari deforestasi. Biasanya kan emisi karbon sebuah negara itu datang dari sektor industri. Tapi khusus negara seperti Indonesia dan seperti Brazil itu datangnya dari deforestasi dan kebakaran hutan yang mengeluarkan emisi begitu banyak. Kita sampai bingung kalau Indonesia itu kan hitungannya negara berkembang.
Benar.
Bukan negara maju yang punya banyak industri. Tapi kok emisinya seperti lebih parah daripada negara maju. Nah, kalau kita melihat hutan Indonesia, di satu sisi Indonesia itu masih punya banyak hutan yang juga sangat kaya. Di Kalimantan, di Papua, di Sumatera, tapi kita juga sudah kehilangan begitu banyak hutan. hutan di Sumatera hampir lebih dari setengah sudah habis.
Yeah.
Kalimantan pun kondisinya tidak jauh berbeda.
Mm-mm.
Papua ada dalam banyak rencana pembangunan untuk dikonversi menjadi berbagai perkebunan dan inisiatif-inisiatif lain dengan harapan itu akan membawa pertumbuhan ekonomi. Tapi kenyataannya ada hal yang tidak seimbang antara pertumbuhan ekonomi untuk rakyat kecil serta para pemilik modal dan kerusakan lingkungan yang akhirnya ditanggung oleh masyarakat umum, masyarakat publik. Jadi kalau ditanya lagi sebenarnya gimana ya kita melihat hutan Indonesia? Indonesia itu berada di junction yang namanya titik di mana kita bisa memutuskan apakah kita akan memilih masa depan yang lebih baik dan memilih untuk melindungi hutan kita dan memilih untuk mungkin mengembangkan teknologi dan pengetahuan dari hutan yang sekarang masih belum sepenuhnya kita kuasai, belum kita pahami, atau kita akan memilih eksploitasi hutan sehingga dalam waktu yang tidak terlalu lama hutan kita akan habis.
Ya, benar sekali. Kalau ajakan dari kakak sendiri gimana nih? Tadi udah memaparkan tentang positif dan negatifnya dari apa yang terjadi di hutan kita sendiri. Himbauan kakak nih sendiri kepada sahabat Green yang sekarang mendengarkan apa?
Aku pengen mengajak semua orang untuk mulai ke hutan. Untuk mulai mengenal hutan. Entah itu jalan-jalan ke hutan melalui teknologi seperti Google Earth. Kawasan ekosistem Meiser itu bisa dikunjungi loh lewat Google Earth, melalui Google Earth Voyager. Kamu bisa mendengarkan suara burung-burung dan suara satwa di hutan. Kamu bisa merasakan seperti apa sih kalau mengunjungi kawasan ekosistem Meiser. Mungkin kekurangannya cuma nggak kerasa air jernihnya dan wanginya hutan itu ya. Mungkin itu yang belum transformasi lewat teknologi. Jadi aku pengen ngajak semua orang untuk lebih kenal dengan hutan dan mulai menumbuhkan rasa cinta untuk melindungi hutan. Kalau dibilang masyarakat urban kan aku tidak ada hubungannya sama hutan. Ada banyak penelitian yang sekarang mengatakan betapa pernah dengar istilah forest bathing nggak sih?
Enggak, kalau Olivia sendiri belum tuh Kak. Apa tuh?
Nah, forest bathing itu adalah sebuah bukan gerakan ya, semacam fenomena, semacam kegiatan yang bisa kita lakukan dengan berdiri di bawah banyak pepohonan dan berjalan-jalan di alam. Itu lebih baik memberikan manfaat bagi kesehatan mental. Jadi dokter-dokter di negara maju seperti negara-negara Skandinavia dan di Jepang gitu misalnya itu mulai meresepkan jalan-jalan di hutan atau mengunjungi area outdoor untuk membantu kesehatan mental para pekerja. Itu aja hal terkecil yang bisa kita lakukan dengan relatively tidak mahal. Kita tidak perlu beli obat-obatan, itu bisa membantu kita untuk sembuh dari, ya bukan sembuh ya gimana ya, karena aku juga tidak mau mengecilkan masalah kesehatan mental itu, untuk membantu memperbaiki mood dan membuat kita lebih ceria dan terhindar dari kesedihan yang berlebihan mudah-mudahan. Jadi aku pengen ngajak semua orang, ayo ke hutan, ayo mengenal hutan, ayo mencintai hutan dan alam di sekitar kalian. Dan kalau ke hutan mohon sampahnya dibawa pulang ya. Jangan ditinggal.
Memang bisa jadi destinasi baru ya Kak, kalau misalnya kan sekarang udah banyak wisata alam yang ada juga di berbagai daerah ya. Itu bisa jadi salah satu hal yang bisa dilakukan sahabat Green untuk menumbuhkan kecintaan kepada hutan sendiri. Nah Kak, kalau kita berbicara tentang isu yang sedang hangat akhir-akhir ini nih mengenai hutan Papua yang sudah Kak sebutkan juga sebelumnya, yang mana terancam akan ekspansi dari perkebunan-perkebunan yang ada di sana. Dan kalau kakak sendiri bagaimana nih melihat isu ini, dan apakah memang Papua akan nantinya jika tidak kayak kita nggak bekerja bersama untuk melakukan ini supaya tidak terjadi, bakal menjadi the next Sumatera dan juga Kalimantan nih. Dan apa sih yang bisa pendengar sekarang dari sahabat Green lakukan untuk mencegah hal ini sendiri terjadi dari kakak sendiri?
Mengatakan apakah Papua akan menjadi seperti Sumatera dan Kalimantan nantinya itu mungkin a bit too fast dan a bit terlalu pesimis ya. Tapi aku melihatnya begini, masalah di hutan Papua itu kompleks dan itu adalah daerah yang relatif jauh dari mata, jauh dari pengetahuan, jauh dari hati. Sehingga sedikit sekali dari kita yang memahami apa yang terjadi di sana. Kampanye-kampanye yang dilakukan oleh banyak lembaga itu membantu kita mencerahkan pemikiran kita, karena kita nggak tahu seberapa besar kerusakan hutan di Papua, kecuali kita memang kayak fokus untuk melihat ke sana. Kita tidak terekspos dengan seberapa besar injustice, ketidakadilan sosial yang terjadi di Papua. Papua itu sebagai suatu daerah itu punya karakteristik yang kompleks dan sebenarnya sedikit sekali dari kita punya cukup pemahaman, yang banyak kita sok tahu. Jadi aku sih melihatnya perkayalah pengetahuan dengan membiarkan diri terekspos dengan secara aktif mencari tahu apa yang terjadi di sana. Kalau kasus-kasus yang saat ini sedang diangkat misalnya dengan PT Korindo di Papua, aku nggak bisa ngomong langsung karena aku tidak bisa mengatakan bahwa aku paham secara detail. Tapi bahkan melihat secara di permukaan saja, apa yang terjadi di sana, ada sangat banyak yang kita sebagai publik bisa lakukan untuk berpartisipasi. Misalnya beberapa hal, kerusakan hutan itu bisa dilakukan kalau ada yang mendanai. Yang mendanai seringkali itu berbentuk datang dari sektor perbankan. Kita semua, kebanyakan dari kita adalah pengguna sektor perbankan. Kita punya tabungan, kita punya kartu kredit, kita punya ATM. Kita sebagai klien dan sebagai pelanggan di sektor perbankan bisa meminta bank tempat kita menyimpan uang itu untuk tidak mendanai proyek-proyek yang merusak lingkungan. Jadi disitulah kita mempergunakan hak dan power kita sebagai konsumen untuk mendorong perubahan yang lebih baik. Jadi ketika kita melihat Papua, saya rasa sih tidak boleh terlalu pesimis dan mengatakan itu akan sehancur Sumatera dan sehancur Kalimantan. Ada banyak kemenangan, ada banyak hal baik yang berhasil dilakukan di Sumatera dan di Kalimantan juga. Sehingga masih ada hutan-hutan seperti kawasan ekosistem Loiser, seperti Gunung Palung, banyak lanskap lain di seluruh Indonesia yang masih terlindungi atau masih dalam proses untuk diperbaiki. Jadi aku pikir kita jangan pesimis, percayalah bahwa setiap individu membawa perubahan, bisa membawa perubahan.
Yap, benar banget. Nah, seringnya juga ya Kak yang kita jumpai terkait regulasi dari pembukaan lahan nih dan kepemilikan hutan sendiri. Apa sih menurut Kakak yang hal lainnya yang bisa menjadi satu masalah untuk keberlangsungan Indonesia yang Kakak temui nih di lapangan? Kakak sudah kan bekerja di kehutanan atau berbicara tentang hutan itu sudah lama banget ya. Menurut Kakak apa nih selain dari regulasi pembukaan lahan dan kepemilikan hutan? Masalah lain yang kita punya untuk hutan sendiri?
Ada banyak. Contohnya gini ya, aku pengen mengaitkan antara demokrasi dan perlindungan hutan. Kalau di daerah, yang namanya pemilihan kepala daerah, itu biasanya sangat mahal. Kenapa sangat mahal? Karena masyarakatnya suka minta, karena money politics itu menjadi sangat entrenched ya, sangat sangat lekat dengan yang namanya proses demokrasi. Jadi kalau seseorang pengen jadi anggota elected officials, entah itu DPR, entah itu bupati, entah itu gubernur, maka dia harus mengeluarkan modal yang sangat besar. Dari mana modal ini datang? Seringkali modal ini datang dari yang namanya jual beli izin, Dan kalau di daerah tentu izin yang banyak dikeluarkan itu kan adalah izin-izin yang terkait dengan sumber daya alam. Biasanya secara singkat pengusaha memodali politisi, lalu politisi terpilih, setelah dia terpilih dia kembali memberikan izin kepada pengusaha. Itu adalah lingkaran setan yang terus-menerus terjadi, dan sebagai anggota masyarakat kita harus memutus itu. Kita harus memilih politisi yang lebih berpihak kepada masyarakat. Kita harus memilih politisi, dan kita juga meminta politisi untuk menjalankan tugasnya dalam membuat regulasi, bukan untuk mengongkosi kehidupan kita. Kan gitu tuh sering banget ya, kalau misalnya sebagai mahasiswa, kalau ada proposal kita minta ke anggota DPR, kita minta ke bupati, itu ada cost yang kemudian akan kita bayar ketika mereka korupsi. Itu satu. Terus kita juga mesti awasi bagaimana negara itu dikelola, bagaimana para anggota DPR memilih budget, memutuskan anggaran, porsi anggaran ke konservasi, porsi anggaran ke perlindungan lingkungan yang diberikan itu berapa dibandingkan porsi anggaran yang diberikan untuk hal-hal lain. Itu juga menjadi perhatian bagi kita. Terus ketika kita meminta infrastruktur ke pemerintah, apalagi untuk di daerah yang masih banyak hutannya. Kadang-kadang kita pikir pembangunan jalan itu sangat penting untuk menghubungkan satu daerah dan daerah lainnya. Di satu sisi itu sangat benar, karena semua orang punya hak terhadap akses. Semua orang punya hak terhadap penyangga kehidupan. Tapi di saat yang bersamaan, kalau jalan itu dibangun tanpa perhitungan yang hati-hati antara poin A dan poin B, melintasi hutan dan habitat, kemungkinan besar setelah jalan itu terbangun, maka hal-hal kegiatan-kegiatan yang merusak hutan, seperti illegal logging, seperti perambahan, seperti perburuan satwa, itu pun lebih gampang terjadi. Jadi dilema-dilema seperti ini memang nyata dan memang terjadi, dan kita perlu untuk mulai memikirkan seperti apa baiknya.
Benar banget tuh. Karena juga kalau misalnya sudah ada dibuat jalan begitu ya Kak, satwa juga kadang bisa menjadi ancaman untuk manusia, dan di saat itu satwa versus manusia ini nih adanya gejolak di sini ya Kak ya. Benar banget sih. Aduh. Nah terakhir nih Kak, kita punya closing statement dari Kakak sendiri atau pesan Kakak nih kepada pendengar dari Green Radio Line, boleh?
Saya merasa kalau yang mendengarkan Green Radio itu pasti orang-orangnya pintar-pintar, cakep-cakep, dan udah aware dengan masalah lingkungan. Mungkin pesan saya cuma satu, ajak lebih banyak orang untuk berdialog soal hal-hal yang sudah kamu pahami. Take action, take more action. Karena setiap hari, apapun yang kita lakukan itu punya dampak, dan pilihlah dampak yang positif.
Oke, keren banget. Nah, mungkin sebelum mengakhiri, saya mau mengutip salah satu statement dari Kak Wiza nih yang saya temukan di Google waktu searching tentang Kakak. Mungkin saja kita merasa tidak membunuh harimau Sumatera dan tidak membeli produk kulit harimau, tapi kita setiap hari membeli minyak sayur dari kelapa sawit yang membunuh habitatnya. Nah, dan saya mau ngucapin terima kasih banget nih Kak untuk waktunya dan juga apa yang Kakak bagikan. Semoga saja yang kita share hari ini bisa menginspirasi banyak orang untuk berbuat take actions langsung nih untuk melindungi hutan-hutan Indonesia dan juga lebih hidup selaras dengan alam nih.
Terima kasih banyak kesempatannya.
Yep, stay healthy, keep the good work, and also inspiring people to protect and take care to our forest. Thank you, bye.
Bye.
Saat ini, Anda sedang mendengarkan Radio Era Baru, Green Radio Line, Beyond the Limit.